Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our trainee presentations. We've grouped our presentations into 3 different categories for today, and we'll have a few presenters in each category. Each presenter has about 5 minutes to present their poster and discuss their project. We'll take a couple questions immediately following the presentation, or we can open it up for more questions after each group has gone in the category. Presenters, when it's your turn, introduce yourself, tell us your name and your academic program and which training program you're participating in. So our first category today is building community. So our first presentation will be Louis.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you this afternoon. And my presentation is on belonging. I think we have the PowerPoint. Yes, on the screen now. And first and foremost, I'm a master's student at Arizona State University. Don't get too upset because I also have my undergraduate degree from the University of Arizona. So I'm actually covering both bases. A little levity. But anyways, coming back to the program, like I said, my topic is on belonging, and I had the pleasure of working on this over this last year with Dr. Lynn Tomasa, who's my mentor. And so as you can see on the poster, belonging is very critical to all of us. And in the center of the poster, you see all of us there, most recently at a New Year's celebration. But many with intellectual developmental disabilities and those on the autism spectrum don't have that opportunity. Why don't we have that opportunity? This is what my poster also talks about. And why we don't is because, one of the reasons is because of isolation. That's a big problem for those of us. Full disclosure, I happen to have a developmental disability myself. So some of this is anecdotal as well. But this is why it's important for us to feel that we belong. Belonging is an elusive term. So what my project and the poster hopes to do is bring it to the forefront and make it more concrete and operational so that when we talk about belonging, that we have a greater understanding of what belonging means. One of the things that I'm grateful for that is going to begin in early May 6th, actually, at 11 a.m. over Zoom, is my peer-to-peer on Wheels group. And we are going to discuss what it means to belong in various areas. One of the areas is going to be through dance and music. I hope we all enjoy music, no matter what genre you may like, whether it be jazz, whether it be hip hop, whether it be disco, showing my age there, but there's still maybe a hybrid of disco, let's say. And so how does that help us to belong? Again, bringing the elusive word of belonging into a more concrete way for everyone to understand what it means to belong. I was recently at one of my faith is extremely important to me. So I happened to be at a Easter service, and one of the parishioners said, "You know, how are you doing? Because I haven't seen you in a while." And I was with my friend and Matthias, and I said, "Well, I was sick for a while," and she was said, "No, I was just curious because we missed you." So one of the things that Eric Carter talks about in belonging, and he's done a lot of research, and this is where my evidence-based practice comes from, on belonging is when you're not there, when you are not there, are you missed? And that's what Dr. Lynn Tomasa and I are trying to uncover. We're going to show society and through research and practice that there is a real purpose for belonging. And it's not just an elusive term. And if you can see on the slide, I also have a research finding that shows the sense of belonging for both Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Well, Japan is ahead of us on that. Why is that? What is it with our culture, not only for those with developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and autism, but just those of us in general? Why do we not have a greater sense of belonging in the United States of America? That is one of the questions that needs to be answered by our society. So again, you said is, Sonoran, you said, is at the forefront of making sure that such issues like belonging come to the forefront so that we can be a more inclusive and welcoming society. Because when we can do that, we then will cut down on things like health issues, because that issue of belonging doesn't only affect you mentally, it affects you physically. So my thought and hypothesis is through belonging, we will be a healthier society. Those of us that happen to have disabilities, we will be healthier. And those of us that don't have quote unquote disabilities will be healthier as well. So that is another piece of what it means to belong. And going back to our group that I'm going to be honored to lead in May, we will discuss various topics, like I said, that maybe will not be easy, but if we can all come to at least bring it out, what it means to belong and how it affects us, then I think we're going to be a better society for all. Thank you very much. And I thank you so much for this time. I'll take any questions at this moment.
Anyone have a question for Louis? Okay, if you don't, oh, let's see. Oh, Noah says, great job.
Thank you.
Okay, if you don't have a question at this moment, we'll circle back after this category is over, so stay tuned. Our next presenters are Hansen and Analisa Teran.
So hi, I'm Analisa Teran. I'm currently an undergraduate at the University of Arizona, and I'm majoring in rehab studies and service. And I am currently a trainee for the certificate in developmental disabilities.
Hello, I apologize. I was changing my camera view to make sure that my interpreters could see me. Hello, my name is Amber Hansen, and I am a graduate student at Arizona State University, and I am studying social work. I have been an intern with the Sonoran USED this semester. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to be here.
So Amber and I, this whole semester, have been helping Dr. Julie Arman into developing a database for intergenerational programming and research across the United States. And if you don't know what intergenerational programming is, it's a type of program to get different generations together to help them interact with each other and get to know each other. So, for example, people who may be 14 years old interacting with a person who is 65 years old. And so we were specifically targeting people with disabilities in intergenerational programming. And what we concluded is that people with disabilities often experience social isolation, and different generations struggle to understand each other. So that's a benefit. And intergenerational programs were developed to address these social issues to help these different generations be with each other and get to know each other and help each other with different problems they may be facing.
Okay, so Analisa and I, we did some research, and we did a literature review, and we studied some gray literature. And we did that because we decided to use, for our search, we decided to use keywords regarding intergenerational program. So we use intergenerational programming, disabilities, and intergenerational programming. So the studies that we did search were the intergenerational programs that were already there. We started with just the first two keywords, intergenerational programming and disability. And I was surprised. I didn't find a lot of results. So we were trying to think of other words to include to expand our search. And I looked back to myself when I worked as a deaf mentor at the Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind. I worked with families who had deaf children. And I thought, that would be included as an intergenerational program. And with people, including people with disabilities. So with more of the keywords that we thought of after that discussion, we included those keywords. So, but we only researched, we only research we decided to use were those that did include both of those words, those keywords. So for my research, I did, I actually used the ASU online library to search for my research that I was looking for. I used EBSCO and the other search engines that they offered, and I found quite a few articles regarding intergenerational program. So now I will allow Analisa to speak about the gray literature and her experience with that.
Yeah, so for the gray literature, I first started with Google searches, and I would start putting keywords, intergenerational programs, and it would be too broad for me to narrow it down. So then after talking with Dr. Arman and getting Amber's opinion on her search, They suggested that to put other keywords or to use a specific database dedicated for these programs. So after looking into it, I found a specific database called Generations United, and it has different types of intergenerational programmings for different social issues, not only for disability, but for children with low SES status or children who are doing low academically, and it's a broad database. So most of my findings were from Generations United, and I would put in the search bar disability and intergenerational programming. So after using Generations United, then I would go to Google and put more keywords, which would include intergenerational programs, disabilities, and mentoring programs.
And so the results that we found with our research were pretty standard. Some of the results that we did notice that were very common were from similar articles that they typically included older people and quality of life. Like Lewis had just mentioned, you know, social isolation is a big problem, especially with people who have disabilities. And when they did socialize, that helped increase their self-esteem. We did notice that their negative attitude and their behaviors that were not necessarily positive were reduced after socialization. And they tend to participate in educational scenarios for people with disabilities, especially for older people with disabilities. When they had a mentor, that was when they were mentoring, it definitely helped in those intergenerational programs.
So in the discussion part of this poster, we outlined the strengths and weaknesses that we found from intergenerational programming. So one strength that we all agreed on was the overall outcomes of intergenerational programming and how beneficial it can be for all participants. Now, after looking at the gray literature and different intergenerational programming websites, everybody mentioned how it was so beneficial for everyone involved. Every website highlighted that in a way, stating that it's best if you volunteer and it will be a life-changing experience. And then there were, in some websites, people came back and talked about their experience years after and how it has helped them in their future profession. While their weakness, they lack of studies on IPs, including diverse disability population. So one thing we all agreed on is that they all targeted mostly similar people with disabilities. And what we mean by that is for the older population, they usually wanted to target older adults with dementia, while with the younger population, they would usually target children who may have a developmental disability, while leaving all the other people with other types of disabilities out. So that's what we found as a weakness.
So after we did our researching on intergenerational programs for people with disabilities, we did notice some common recommendations from the studies. There should be a joint activities created for these groups that can do, they can be together. And a lot of people mentioned they wished those programs would last longer because they could build longer lasting connections with each other. And also, we wanted to make sure that all the participants liked doing the activities that were presented and provided. And Analisa also mentioned we do need to do more studies that cover a more diverse population of disabilities.
Yeah, so just looking at our bar graph on the side, the first one named the number of individuals in IPs with disability, that one is mine. And it's just going farther into what I discussed earlier. So for example, as you can see, they're targeting more of the younger population with disability other than adults in these programs, having older people mentor the younger ones, which I found very interesting because most of the time I would think that it would be the other way around. But so after having these findings, it just kept me thinking, what can we do to help the older population? Then in the next bar graph, that's Amber's.
So Analisa and I both made the graphs to summarize each of the sources that we use to research. So if you would like more access to that information, you could scan the QR code that's provided there, and that will lead you to a spreadsheet that, and there is a bit.ly link as well, if you prefer to use a bit.ly link, and it will provide you more in-depth information in how we decided or what information we used. And those also, our email addresses are included at the bottom of the slide. So if you'd like to contact either of us, the information's there.
Yes, if you want to look further into all the research we have done, please use those resources. And just to conclude everything that we did, we found it intergenerational program to be an overall success for everyone involved. There are other ways to implement it into people, to get people motivated to join intergenerational programming. One that stood out to me the most is in a particular school, not here in Arizona. It was a requirement for high school students to join an intergenerational program and be a mentor. So maybe implementing that in the future. And hopefully this could lead to the university to create one or other places to create one. Amber, do you have any final thoughts?
Yes. I would also like to make a special acknowledgement to Dr. Arman for all of her help. It's been a wonderful opportunity to improve our research skills and an opportunity to really think about the possibilities for intergenerational programming in the future for people with disabilities. Also, I would like to thank JC and Selena for their input and their feedback. Thank you for this experience.
Yes, thank you to all of you again. It was a great experience learning about all of this as well.
We have a couple minutes for questions or comments for Louis and for Analisa and Amber.
So it looks like we have some comments and questions in the chat that I'll read. We have earlier, Julie Arman said Louis's project was very interesting. Jamie Edgen also, I think regarding the intergenerational, was saying this was interesting. Ray mentioned, I can definitely relate to the difficulty finding additional keywords when conducting literature reviews. And I'm not sure if this is you, Analisa, or maybe someone else who came with you, but as allies, what are some practical ways we can incorporate intergenerational programming in our day-to-day lives? So this one for Analisa or Amber?
That's a good question. So what I saw in most of my gray literature research is that there was one program that tried to implement intergenerational programs to the day-to-day lives by not only reaching out to the person, but to their family as well and helping them. So maybe trying to do something like that so they could help them in their everyday lives. Because intergenerational programming is just to collaborate with different generations, whether it be a family member, friends. So basically doing that and just trying to implement it into our school systems can be another way that we can get people talking more about intergenerational programming, because there are many school systems that do have this. Like I mentioned, the high school program. So having more programs like that could really build up intergenerational program in everyday life. Do you have anything to add, Amber?
Yes. So it was very interesting studying the variety of programs that were available to people with disabilities. And from my personal experience as a deaf adult, I enjoy working with younger deaf children. And also I look back to me, myself as a young deaf child. And I thought I was amazed at how able I was to socialize with older people, and people with disabilities. Most of the time, they can't really relate to their families on the same kind of level, if you understand what I mean. So it's very important for people with disabilities to find opportunities, any person with a disability, to find socialization, any socialization activities of any type for them to become involved in. So.
If I could ask a question. I think, or a comment actually. This made me think because I think that folks with developmental, intellectual, and people on the autism spectrum have a lot to give. So I'm wondering too, if your program or research addresses people with disabilities being the mentor for not only people with disabilities, but people that are able-bodied, and how that could also, along with my research, enhance their sense of belonging to the larger community. And did you find that at all?
And this is Amber. So, Louis, I was thinking the same thing while I was listening to your presentation, how our research and your research could align together very well. Some of these studies included both groups, people with disabilities, but oftentimes they would have, at least one able-bodied, or they would have an able-bodied group and a disabled group with people with disabilities. And so I did find that very interesting in the intergenerational programming, that the participants in both of those groups actually did have people with disabilities. But I was thinking along the similar lines with your presentation.
Yes, I just see this interconnectivity that could occur that could shed further light in both cases. So interesting, and I'm glad that we were both presenting at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree too. After researching the gray literature, I said that's interesting that you mentioned that because I did not find anything like that, which I think there should be now that I think about it, because it would change many things. So hopefully in the future there'll be more. I only found that people with a disability were the social issue that they were targeting, trying to help and get mentors for them. But that would be something that should be talked about more or be implemented more in the intergenerational programming.
Yes, because I also think what you're bringing out, both of you have brought out, and what I'm bringing out is that we, as a society, I think, from what I've seen anecdotally and through the research, we tend to go to say, well, the person with the disability is the one that needs they're the ones that need the help, versus no, the person with a disability actually should be the one that's the change agent, and that's what I'd like to see more of. I think that would be interesting.
And this is Amber. Yes, I would agree. Language makes a difference, definitely. And how we word programs, how we word our approaches that we take to change things. And maybe we could change people's intentions, maybe within an intergenerational programming, thinking of the opportunity to grow, develop, instead of, oh, how can I help these people, right? So language is definitely very important, and word choice definitely makes a difference.
Yes, yes. Good job.
Yumi, I see your hand is raised. You can unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, sure. I just the comments, and I really so proud to see the project that's really highlight how we can make people with disability as advocate and also leader to make changes that, in my side project, Luis is part of our group, and we have the folks with the different disability group together. That intergenerational project reminded me of intergroup, different group get together. So people with intellectual disability versus people with physical disability together. How we can have a shared purpose versus community to really intermingle and explore our common interest. And I think that's where, as a facilitator, we need to really think through who can be the co-facilitator together with the knowledge that they have in their community. And I have some hesitation as an able body to really lead a dance group with the physically disabled population. So having Luis in the group and other instructor in the group and being a co-facilitator of some of the activities really helps us or me to realize as a facilitator how we can work together as a group. So it's really mimics, or I can see similarity in intergenerational project versus multi-group project. That's just a comment. And thank you for both of the presentations.
Okay. I have one final question for Louis before we move on. If anyone else has a question, feel free to raise your hand or in the chat box. But Louis, you mentioned that your new group will start here in May. How are you recruiting folks to participate in your peer-to-peer group?
That's a good question. I should clarify too. Thanks again to Sonora and you said, and Dr. Tomasa and Jeff, because they're the ones that are helping me with the recruitment piece. And actually, I very much appreciate that, because we're making sure that we get folks in our group. It's going to be a small group, about 6 people. So Dr. Tomas is helping me with the selection process, and it's going to be over Zoom. That's how we're doing it. And it's going to start, like I said, on May 6th, which is a Saturday, and it's going to run for a month approximately. And it'll be the first time. It's a pilot program. And hopefully that from the recruitment of the initial time, we'll have the group run again. It might not be me, but the hope is that someone else can pick it up and carry the ball if it wasn't me, so that again we can go and try something new. Thank you for that question.